What if your greatest dream was also a preview of your worst nightmare? What if the very device you hold in your hand, the one that connects you to the world, became a cast window or a window into a future you cannot escape? Imagine knowing the exact moment, the very second, your life would end. Not from a sickness, not from old age, but from a fate you have already witnessed in high definition. This is not a story of a blessing. This is a chronicle of a curse. A warning whispered on the digital wind. For every glimpse of light, there is a shadow that grows longer, darker, and hungrier. This is the story of a man who bought a phone that could see the future. A phone that showed him everything he ever wanted until it started showing him the one thing he could never, ever outrun. This is the story of Kofi. And by the end, you will look at your own phone and you will wonder. Listen closely. For his story could be yours. To understand the depth of Kofi's fall, you must first feel the crushing weight of his world. Picture, if you will, the city of Kumasi. Not the vibrant, bustling city of the day, but the city as Kofi knew it in the weary, hollow hours of the evening. The air, thick with the smells of dust, exhaust, and fried plantain, felt heavy in his lungs. The sounds, the blaring horns of Tiaotros, the shouted arguments of market women, the distant thump of generator sets, were not the sounds of life to him, but a constant, grating noise that underscored his own insignificance. Kofi Mensah was a ghost in his own life. A messenger. A man who carried the important documents and packages of richer, more powerful men. He was a pair of hands, a set of running legs, a face they never truly saw. His uniform, a faded blue shirt with a peeling company logo, was a badge of his invisibility. His shoes, their soles worn thin as paper, knew every crack and fissure in the city's pavement. And his soul felt the grind of it all. The slow, eroding grind of a future that promised nothing but more of the same. His home was a single room in a compound house he shared with 7 other families. The walls were thin, and the sounds of his neighbors' lives, a crying baby, a couple arguing, the blare of a television, were a constant reminder of the connections and comforts that eluded him. In the center of this room was a small, rickety table. And on that table, charging from an extension cord snaked precariously from the hallway, was his only escape, a cheap, second-hand smartphone, its screen a web of hairline cracks. This was his sanctuary. His portal. Every night, after a meal of plain rice and beans, he would collapse onto his thin mattress, the glow of the screen illuminating the face of a man being slowly erased by the world. He would scroll through social media, where his old schoolmates posted pictures of new cars and vacations. Through news sites that spoke of economic booms he never felt. And most of all, he would scroll through online marketplaces. He would gaze at the sleek smartphones, the designer shoes, the tailored suits, all the artifacts of a life that felt as distant as the moon. He was a dreamer, yes. But his dreams were not of grandeur. They were dreams of simple dignity, of respect, of a life where he was not just a ghost. It was on one such night, deep in the hollow hours, that the algorithm, as if sensing the deep, fertile soil of his desperation, presented him with the seed of his own destruction. The advert appeared between a listing for used tires and an ad for a spiritual healer. It was sleek, minimalist, and utterly unlike the garish, text-heavy ads that usually cluttered the site. The description was a mere 3 lines. See beyond the veil. Know what is to come. Price, one secret you will never tell. Kofi let out a short, bitter laugh. A marketing gimmick. A silly psychological hook. What was one secret? He was a man full of secrets, the secret of his shame, his poverty, his loneliness. What was one more? He thought for a moment, his fingers hovering over the screen. What secret was worthless enough to trade? He typed a sentence, a memory from childhood that was embarrassing but meaningless. When I was 8, I stole a mango from Old Man Kusi's tree and I lied to his face when he asked me. He clicked buy. There was no confirmation of address, no payment details requested. Just a single, final message, your oracle is coming. Be ready. A strange chill, unrelated to the night air, passed through him. He dismissed it, closed the app, and went to sleep. The dream that night was not of wealth or success. It was of a single, unblinking eye watching him from the depths of a spiral. 3 days later, the package arrived. It was on his doorstep when he returned from work, the simple, black cube, no larger than his hand. No postage stamp. No return address. It was cool to the touch, unnaturally so, as if it had been stored in a freezer. His heart hammered with a strange mix of excitement and trepidation as he carried it inside. He opened the box. There was no plastic, no foam, and no instruction manual. Nestled in a bed of what looked like black velvet lay the phone. It was heavier than it looked, solid. The matte black finish seemed to drink the light from his room. The spiral eye on the back seemed to shift subtly when he wasn't looking directly at it. With trembling hands, he pressed the power button. The screen did not light up with a colorful logo or a cheerful welcome screen. It simply awoke into a deep, star-filled blackness. A void. In the center of this void was a single, pulsating white dot. As he held it, a strange sensation spread from the device into his palm, not a shock, but a deep, resonant warmth, like holding a living thing that had just become aware of him. He nearly dropped it when it buzzed. A notification. Not from an app. Not from a service. It was a simple text, floating in the center of the starry void. It was a headline from a popular local news site. It detailed a massive, fatal pileup on the Akro-Kumasi highway. Multiple cars, a fuel tanker involved, expected casualties in the dozens. The timestamp on the article was for tomorrow afternoon. Kofi's breath caught in his throat. This was impossible. A sick joke. A sophisticated glitch. He dismissed it, his mind racing. He would put it out of his mind. This was nonsense. But the next day, as he rode in a crowded, noisy TRO to deliver a package, the traffic slowed to a crawl. Then a standstill. Through the windshield, far ahead, he could see the flashing blue and red lights of emergency vehicles. The twisted, blackened metal. The acrid smell of smoke and spilled fuel drifted through the air. It was the exact accident. The same number of cars. The same involvement of a fuel tanker. His blood turned to ice. This was no glitch. This was no coincidence. The oracle had spoken. And it had told the truth. A cold dread, solid and heavy, settled in the pit of Kofi's stomach. He stared at the wreckage not with the morbid curiosity of the other passengers, but with the paralyzing horror of a man who has just seen a ghost. No, not a ghost, a premonition. A future made flesh and twisted metal. The phone in his pocket felt like a lead weight. The warmth he'd felt now seemed like a feverish, unnatural heat. He wanted to tear it from his pocket and fling it from the TRO window. But he didn't. A deeper, more insidious instinct had taken root, curiosity. And beneath that, the faint, shimmering ember of opportunity. He spent the rest of the day in a daze, his mind a whirlwind of fear and a terrifying, burgeoning excitement. That evening, back in his single room, he took the phone out with the reverence one might afford a holy relic or a venomous snake. He held it in his palm, the starry void screen reflecting in his wide eyes. "Okay," he whispered to the device, his voice hoarse. "Show me." He thought of the biggest football match of the season happening that night. Who will win? Hearts or Kotoko? He focused the question in his mind, directing it at the phone. For a moment, nothing. Then, the screen shimmered. The starfield dissolved, replaced by the final score graphic from a popular sports channel. It showed a victory for Hearts of Oak. The graphic was perfect, down to the font and the broadcaster's logo. The timestamp on the graphic was for 4 hours in the future. Kofi's heart thumped against his ribs. He found a small, illegal betting shop tucked away in an alley, a place he'd never dared enter before. With the last of his meager savings, he placed a bet on Hearts of Oak. He spent the next 4 hours in a state of unbearable tension, huddled over a crackling radio in a nearby chop bar, listening to the match commentary. When the final whistle blew, confirming the victory for Hearts, a sound escaped Kofi's lips, the half-sob, half-laugh of pure, unadulterated triumph. He collected his winnings, a sum of money that felt astronomical in his hand. It was more than he earned in a month. That night, he didn't eat plain rice and beans. He bought a full meal of fufu and light soup with goat meat. He ate until he was full, a simple pleasure he had not known in years. This was the beginning. The dam of his desperation had broken, and the waters of avarice rushed in. He began to test the oracle's limits, carefully, methodically. He asked about his boss. "What will Mr. Boateng say in the management meeting tomorrow?" The phone provided a verbatim transcript. Kofi used the information to prepare a solution to a problem before it was even raised. The look on Mr. Boateng's face, the mixture of shock, respect, and suspicion, was a drug more potent than any winnings. He was promoted. No more messenger runs. He was given a desk. A title. Logistics coordinator. The words felt foreign and wonderful on his tongue. He asked about the stock of a local company. The phone showed him a sharp rise. He invested his betting winnings. The stock rose. He was suddenly, inexplicably, a man of means. Within 2 months, Kofi Mensah was unrecognizable. The faded blue shirt was replaced by tailored suits in charcoal gray. The worn-out shoes were now Italian leather. He moved out of the single room and into a sleek, modern apartment with air conditioning and a view of the city. He bought a car. A modest one, but it was his. The ghost was becoming a man of substance. The phone was no longer a cursed object, it was his most treasured possession. His talisman. He kept it on him at all times, its cool, dark presence a constant comfort. He spoke to it and thanked it. He grew careless in his euphoria, using its power for increasingly trivial matters. What was the best route to avoid traffic? Which woman at the bar would be most receptive to his advances? The oracle provided, its predictions always flawless, its answers immediate. But the universe, as we have established, demands a balance. And the first hint of the coming death arrived not with a scream, but with a whisper. He was at a sophisticated rooftop bar, on a date with a beautiful, intelligent woman named Amma. He was charming, confident, the new Kofi in full display. The phone, tucked in his inner suit pocket, buzzed softly. He discreetly glanced at it. The message was not a headline or a score. It was a simple, chilling line of text, asterisk, she will receive a call in 10 seconds. Her ex-lover, Kwame. She will lie to you about who it is. Kofi's smile faltered. 10 seconds later, precisely, Amma's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and a subtle, almost imperceptible flicker of tension crossed her face before she manufactured a bright smile. "Oh, it's just my sister," she said, sending the call to voicemail. The chill that washed over Kofi had nothing to do with the evening breeze. The oracle was no longer just showing him public events or financial data. It was peering into the private, hidden hearts of the people around him. It was showing him their lies. The warmth from the phone in his pocket now felt like the feverish heat of a sickness. The blessings had begun to curdle. The spiral was beginning to tighten. Watch out for part 2. Don't miss it.